flame does not stay at the right level anymore. Anyone want to tell me what I'm doing wrong? Like, you're not supposed to have it turned up this high, but when I turn it down, the flame is like gone. And it used to work, so I think I've messed up my wick or something. So if any of you are like oil lamp experts, let me know what I'm doing wrong. Hello there, and welcome back to the Closet Historian and back to my dining room, where I do believe I left you the last time when I was updating you on how the decorating of my house is going. And before I could put together an actual recap of what I have accomplished here in this house over the last year, I had to show you the last space that I've kind of left to the side. And that is the kitchen. I've actually had some requests to show you what I've done back here as if I've done a renovation, which, no, sadly not. Believe me, if I had done a full kitchen renovation, you would have been involved. And as you can imagine, renovating a kitchen or a bathroom is one of the most expensive projects a homeowner can take on. So I really don't feel like I've actually even touched the kitchen at all. I've done a little bit of demo, but not really. It's been subtractive as opposed to additive, I think, so far. So let us start back before the beginning, before I actually moved into this house in November of 2024. And in fact, this little vertical video clip was shot by my realtor while she was touring the house for me, because I did buy this house sight unseen all the way from Colorado, even after I laid eyes on this dated little kitchen. And here you will see a lot more cabinetry than I currently have, and a stacked Harvest Gold double oven from, I assume, Sears circa, 1973, which is just a guess and is around when these cabinets and floor were put in as well. Though the apple print, fill, and border wallpapers I do believe came later, because once my mom and I started tearing parts of this kitchen apart, I did find two other wallpapers hiding beneath this one, including a rather cute 1930s or 40s paper and then the original 1970s paper, which I think is very retro, but not the kind of retro I personally prefer. In fact, I think I would have liked the kitchen that these 1970s folks replaced, because there is a white enamel and chrome 1940s fridge in my basement and a really nice long washboard porcelain sink in the basement, and I think both of those white pieces would have been in this green linoleumed 1940s version of the kitchen that I would have loved to have seen. And because the top oven of this set didn't even really fully close anymore, I wasn't sure if these were the safest appliances to still be operating when they hadn't been rewired since they got put in. Therefore, to make the house livable for me, my mom and I pulled out the double ovens bit by bit, because of course they would be very heavy to remove all in one piece, and there were dozens and dozens of screws holding these things together, and taking them apart and out took us several hours. And I will say the frayed and fragile wiring on the inside really hammered home that this was the right decision for me. Though I do wish to apologize to the 1970s kitchen purists out there. I'm just not one of you. We also removed another section of counter and cabinetry from the back wall of the house between the windows here, leaving us a rather unfortunate patch that we covered up with some cheap beadboard from the hardware store as a temporary fix. Then as soon as I actually moved into the house, it quickly became clear that I needed some place to put smaller appliances and store not only gadgets but also food, so I quickly grabbed a few storage pieces off of Wayfair out of necessity. Alright pals, what happens when you have more paint samples than you have money for paint? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put all of these samples into this bucket, mix them together, tint it up with a few extras if need be, and try and create a gallon or so of paint to go ahead and use to paint the kitchen for now. Again, this entire kitchen will one day in the future, several years from now probably, be entirely ripped out and redone. So this is just so that I don't have to look at the apple print wallpaper any longer. I'm going to paint directly over it. That is a bad plan, but hopefully the results of my temporary fix will speak for themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and mix all these together into here and see what I can come up with. Look, the kitchen is still an absolute wreck, but at least now it's like a bluish teal kind of wreck instead of apples. So all of the apples are sadly gone. I have painted the ceiling and all of the various textures of walls. We've got our kind of shiplap width. This is actually 70s wood paneling here. There's a piece that's missing, so I painted directly on the wall behind that. Then there's the piece of the narrow bead board that me and my mom put up to cover the really sad plaster that was behind a cabinet that was originally here. So I put some trim on top of that, so it looks a little bit nicer. I do still have to paint the trim in here. It is a slightly dingy ivory right now. Of course, now, even if you just imagine that fridge replaced with a Smeg, wouldn't this be so much cuter? I know, even that would help. The cheap Wayfair carts don't help in here, but then again, neither does the Harvest Gold trash compactor that I obviously don't use, or the dishwasher next to it that I also don't use because I'm one person and it's simply not that many dishes to actually just wash. But I still think this is an improvement in here. I'm really happy with the color, especially seeing as I mixed this color from samples from nothing. It's a little bit dark in here right now. This is the kind of blue-green color that looks bluer at some times of day and greener at other times of day. So right now in person, I think it looks a little bit more blue on camera. Even when I was showing my mom, she was like, it's very blue. And I was like, no, I promise it's got a little bit more green in it than you would think. So again, this color is nameless because I mixed it from various bits of paint. So we'll have to name this color ourselves, sadly. And here's my pile of recycling. I do also still need to wash and then completely clean behind and then paint the radiator covers in here as well. Unfortunately, I can't replace these with the nicer ones that I do prefer, both because of budget reasons, but also because this has a double rung of pipe and of the aluminum like heat element that goes on the pipe for a hot water radiator. So this is a double stack of that in here. Kitchen would get nice and toasty if I turn the heat on, but there's also an oven in here, so I don't really need extra heating in the kitchen, but whatever. But I do need to figure out a solution so at least they blend in. I do still have a little bit of this paint left, and I would love to paint these so we don't have to look at them. Also, this rug is awful in here, but it's just because I don't like looking at this horrible floor. I think we can all agree that the best part so far of the situation are the cute mugs and the apothecary glass situation. These are just recycled glass vessels that they have for very inexpensive at Home Goods. So kind of every time I go now, I just grab one of these for $10, or I think the most I've seen them is $14. I think these tall ones were $14.99. The big, huge apothecary jars, but they're so cool. So I'm kind of just filling that up there with those to make it look less weird, because of course there's just this dead space above these horrible 70s cabinets, which, I mean, I call these cabinets bad, but it's not nearly as bad as the countertops, so yikes. At least I did put a new bulb in this little sconce that was over here, because it was a very weak little sconce and there was really no reason to turn it on even as a nightlight because the bulb was so sad. And then I realized that bulb is probably from like 1984, and I put a new one in there and it works much better now. So classic. And luckily I was able to find online, I've been using this antique brass switch plate design that I saw online for all the other areas downstairs, and I was able to finally find one that has a switch and it has a switch on one side and an outlet on the other. For this light, this little light comes on because this is the lights for the basement downstairs, and this is to let you know that you left the basement lights on even if you're upstairs. So that's what those are. This is the light that I installed today in here. There was a large ceiling fan in here, but it was literally just coated and full of like 20 years of dust and sadness. And this being a kitchen, of course, there was like kind of like grease and moisture in the air. So the dust was just caked onto the ceiling fan. It was so gross. And I just had to get it out of here. Is it a bummer not to have a fan in here now? Yes. Will I probably install a mini air conditioner in one of the windows back here next year? Yes. Is this so much prettier? Yes. This is just a little schoolhouse style light that I picked up on Wayfair, and I can link this below for you. I think they still have the same one. I just picked this up recently so that I could have a different light in here. I thought this was a more vintage vibe, a little bit late Edwardian Art Deco kind of a time. And do I want to save up for a big chill refrigerator because they are so beautiful? Yes, but they're, I think, even more expensive than a Smeg, which is saying a lot. But the Smegs don't come in like this same kind of Edwardian icebox look, and oof, the big chill is so delicious. So That's another thing I might try and save up for next year, although that is crazy expensive for anything, honestly. That isn't, I don't know, like, that's like, I could do the flooring for that price. So we'll see how it goes. All right, as we can see, I have yet to actually paint the trim in this kitchen. But I decided to grab another light to be like kind of task lighting above the coffee machine and the sort of island prep space that I've created in here. So I grabbed a simple little kind of gooseneck-ish plug-in sconce that can go right here and then plug in right below here where there's an outlet. And the shade arrived and it was kind of a gray color, but I've painted it to match this milk glass shade up here. And honestly, the ivory is quite a close match, so I feel good about that. So I'm gonna go ahead and hang up this lamp and then also hang up a painting I found on eBay. It's actually an original artwork that I found on eBay for pretty cheap. And I thought it was fun for the kitchen, a little bit Red Dead Redemption-y back here in the very back of the house. So allow me to transform this one tiny sad corner of my kitchen a little bit, and then I eventually will paint the darn trim and switch out the cafe curtains, etc., etc. But for now, I'm just gonna hang a few things up and call that good for progress in this room because I need to keep working on the foyer far behind us. As you will know if you watched my last video documenting the renovations of this house, the decorating of this house, with my parents' help I was able to install luxury vinyl flooring back here, just a stopgap between the 50-plus-year-old peel and stick tiles that I had on my floor and a future more robust flooring option that I hope to be able to invest in down the line. After all, almost anything is better than pitted, peeling, stained, dusty, dirty peel and stick tiles from 1973. And I did finally manage to paint the ivory trim around the doors and the windows down here. Well, almost all of the windows. The window above the kitchen sink is still its lovely gloopy ivory, but that's because this trim is the worst offender in the house for layers and layers of thick paint that just need to be removed before I can actually paint anything new on here. So I do hope to actually citrus strip this window before I start fresh with some blue. Okay, here I am to give you a current tour of my kitchen. Luckily, Sophie is here to complain and assist. This is a random IKEA rug that has been thrown in here just to help me not wear a pattern in my new floor, although it's hardy laminate or vinyl or whatever. As you can see, Sophie is demonstrating the reason for the rug so that she can flop on it and that I can give her pets. That's right. The biggest upgrade, I guess, upgrade of this kitchen so far, which is that the vintage double ovens and the sort of white electric, stovetop are gone because they were a fire hazard, honestly. So the very first housewarming present I received was from my parents, and it was this stove so that I could cook and eat and live and survive and not burn down my house. It's done a great job so far this last year. And while it has been interesting switching from cooking on a gas range at my parents' house and kind of learning to cook all over again on this electric range, because this burner goes from like 0 to very hot very quickly. So how many times have I like burnt oil or butter before I even managed to get the food in there? Several. But it's worth it to me to not invest in using more natural gas in my house. It's actually considered one of the best things you can do as a consumer is to actually grab an electric stove instead of gas when it comes to making environmentally friendly choices on a like personal consumer level. It's obviously not going to make a huge difference in the grand scheme, but if we all switched to more electric things, it would technically be better. Now, as much as I did not appreciate the cabinet that used to live here, and obviously as soon as we started ripping out that like built-in oven situation, we had to rip out the rest. This is obviously not an aesthetic solution, this cart from Wayfair. It does light up, which is quite fun, but mostly it just serves as a place to put all of my spices, a couple of cookbooks, and the microwave itself. And then I have down here rice, all the oils and vinegars, and canned goods actually, because my pantry is more of a tool storage area than actually a food storage area, but we can get to that later. Now, if I were to like gut this kitchen and do a full renovation and move things around, I probably would not have the oven on this zone. I'm not quite sure what I would exactly do. It feels like limitless options and also none. And luckily, because I don't have the money to do this renovation, I don't have to have it decided. But I think for my first round of things, when I start fixing this place up a little more, I would love to center the oven on the fireplace here, and then kind of do a built-in surround and make it more of a feature, make it look kind of like how you see done in like old English kitchens or even French kitchens, where they kind of have obviously there was an old fireplace cooking area that they just stuck like a cast iron stove in and then kept going. I would kind of like to make this look a little bit more intentional, because this fireplace hearth is just here in the middle of this the dining and kitchen area, and it would be very costly to remove an entire chimney that goes from obviously outside of my roof down into the basement. I'm sure structurally and etc. that would be very hard and expensive to remove, so I have to kind of work with this chimney, and I would like to again kind of build in some sort of a way to house the oven that seems a little bit more aesthetic, with some spice racks in the side, although that will mean I have to find a new home for the microwave. And there are, openings either side of this, central kitchen hearth, as it were. And I would like to close this side with a wall, and then possibly have counter that comes into like a full L. Now we run into an issue layout-wise with where the sink ends and where that like counter would need to begin, because it would be like right in the corner, unless you pushed it back further, which of course there's some space thanks to the fireplace. So again, that will have to be something that I figure out later on when I can actually afford a renovation. This was one of the first purchases that I grabbed quickly, just not for form, but purely for function in this house, because I needed more counter space in here after taking out this entire zone, and of course the other zone on the wall opposite. And you may be thinking, yeah, why did you get rid of that entire counter and extra cabinet up here? That was a lot more storage space, a good spot for a microwave, etc. And that is because this door opened and hit the side of the counter that was here. There was like a curved counter here, and this door hit it, so you couldn't open this door like wider than, 40 degrees, which was an issue when trying to use this door to, bring out the recycling or in the groceries. So that was a huge problem functionally, and so I decided that counter and that cabinet had to go. They did just kind of look like they were floating here and didn't look super intentional anyhow, so they kind of had to go. Now, as Xander is demonstrating here, sadly, because this double height radiator situation does come so close to this door still does not open all the way. But we got another 20 degrees out of it before I figured that out. So making baby steps to actually being able to use the door out the back of the house. But we're not quite there yet. And in general, this is probably my favorite view of the kitchen right now, just because I quite like the almost Georgian or pastel Regency Emma vibe of the tone-on-tone tealy blue sort of aqua color that we have going on here on these doors. So this is the door to the very short little hallway. There's another door down to the basement. There's a door that goes outside. This door goes to my back, aka servant's staircase. Of course, the servant in this case is me, and the cats are the grand owners of the house. And even though this was a surprise color, aka I just mixed it up with what I had left, as you saw, I am actually quite pleased with the color. It's very light and bright in here and a little bit cheerful compared to what I normally go for, but I do still think it's fun. Now, I had an extra set of these curtains. These curtains are technically were purchased for my bedroom upstairs, and I do have a set hanging up there, but I wanted to go ahead and just cover the entryway into the laundry room, because sitting in my cute little, now it's cute, dining room and looking at big white hulking laundry machines is just not a luxurious experience. So I wanted something for now to cover up this entranceway. What I would actually like to do, instead of having a door or a curtain or something here, I would actually like to just make that little room in there, instead of a laundry area, into a fancy bar area. And then I wouldn't mind seeing it through here, because it would be a fancy butler's pantry kind of a vibe. So that's the plan for in there, to fix this eventually. But for now, it is quite nice to not have to look into like the utility-ish parts of the house. Not that this is not a utility vibe, but a little bit of something nicer to look at for now while I wait to figure out how to reconfigure my darn house. Importantly, here is the brass toggle switch / combo thing that I was talking about earlier. And I did hang up some more of these brass bugs that I found at the Home Goods. So, you know, a brass bug is always good. There were a couple of like nail holes and things that were already here, and covering them with a bug. Sure, why not? Sounds like something I would do, doesn't it? Obviously, the floor is a huge change and a huge upgrade. It feels so much nicer and cleaner in here just to have a floor that I actually can sweep, can mop, can clean, compared to those breaking tiles that, you know, just dust was getting into the fractures of it all, and it was just didn't feel clean and didn't feel nice in any way, shape, or form, which made the whole room feel gross. And it's a room that you use several times a day. So this is a huge upgrade, not just practically, but also almost like existentially. Like, I just feel better living in this house knowing that I can actually clean the kitchen a little bit more than I could before. And that is still how I feel about the remaining 70s cabinets and countertop, because the countertop situation here, this counter is a laminate faux marble and it goes all the way up the back. There's no seam back here. So it's like a seamless cardboard thing that's like leaning against the wall. It's not a real backsplash. It's just laminate. I also do not use the remaining Harvest Gold piece in here, the last vintage piece in here, trash compactor or this dishwasher. So I could have so much more storage for, say, pots and pans and toasters, etc. here if that was cabinetry instead of unused appliances. Good job modeling the sink, Zamzams. I don't know why you're suddenly interested. And actually, weirdly, the like most first world problem I have about this kitchen is that there is no garbage disposal. So you have to like make sure every speck of food is off a dish or a pan before you put it in the sink. And that bothers me. Also, the sink does, the drain does leak a little bit anyhow. So the whole thing probably needs to be replaced. Obviously the cabinets are super banged up. I would say they're still functional, but at the same time, this is the only cabinetry that I can actually use as storage. And this is too tall for a little 5'5" me to actually use on the daily. So I really have one cabinet in here plus the Wayfair storage pieces. So not exactly the most functional situation. And it's only 7 feet from the edge right there to the fridge. And I've got to imagine 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 base cabinets and a 7-foot long piece of slab can't be that expensive. So the first thing I would like to do once I can afford to make another change in this kitchen is to just grab some lowers, grab some solid surface countertops and a new sink with a garbage disposal, and like just upgrade this zone from what it is now, basically just take the exact same like footprint, I guess, and upgrade it to new materials so that I can actually use this space for storage and get these appliances out of here. And this countertop just feels so dingy and gross that to have something new would make a big difference again in that sort of existential mindset version of the kitchen and the practicality of using it every day. And as someone who loves browsing tile, I would love to choose just this much of a backsplash because it can't be that expensive. It would only be like $1.50. Overall, future dreams for this side of the kitchen involve obviously not having this what I assume is like on sale for Christmas Costco refrigerator with its yellowed handle. It is still very functional, and technically on a recycling basis, I should just keep using it till it dies, but it's very unattractive. So there's that. These cabinets, I think I just need to have them come down. It's the only storage in here right now. If I had different storage and like a butler's pantry behind us, I wouldn't really need these cabinets and it would just make it feel a lot nicer up here. Although I have really gone to town with the apothecary styling on the top, and it would be a shame to lose that. So maybe some shelves here instead, perhaps. Again, in the grand future version of this kitchen, I would love to do tile up the walls, if not fully, then 3/4, like a true Edwardian kitchen. Something like this or this or this, if you can see in these inspiration images that I like to find while over on Pinterest while I'm dreaming. And potentially I would like to move the sink from under this window because it's just not ideal if I do end up changing this into like a counter that goes all the way and creates an actual L right here. This would be just not the ideal place for a sink anymore. And I would actually like to move the sink unit and have a separate sink situation between these two windows out the back of the house. So I think to have a little sink here with a plate rack atop of it and kind of like a curved I don't know, sink unit situation between these two windows would just free up a lot of space where you'd have this be a full counter. Might even move the fridge here, have a pantry, fridge, and then fully just counter in an L shape over here into the oven area. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. And if any of you are kitchen designers, let me know what you would do with this kitchen, because it's one day will be a clean slate. For now, I'm kind of stuck because, of course, the plug that requires the extra electricity for the oven is over here, and the sink and all the plumbing is right there. So I can't really move those without, again, getting into a rather large renovation. And I know that is one of the more expensive things about doing a kitchen, is actually moving the plumbing or moving the electrics around. So for the first kind of kitchen renovation that I would hope to do, maybe at the end of this next year, if I can swing it, I don't think I'll be able to move any of the main pieces around. So the sink will have to stay here. The oven will have to stay in this zone. The fridge will probably have to stay in the same space. So I don't know how much reconfiguring I can do for the first round of renovations in here. But again, for the dream kitchen that, you know, tens of thousands of dollars down the line, what should I do to make this a better flow, a better kitchen overall? Let me know. And because the amount of counter space in here and prep space was so limited that I was honestly not cooking like regular, like intense meals where I had to do a lot of prep, because it was just impossible and very irritating. So now I have this extra prep space because of this little shelf unit that, again, is just a cheap piece off of Wayfair. This now serves as my coffee station and also some pantry storage, some pots and pan storage. I don't have enough surface area to keep the toaster out, so it lives down here because I make smoothies slightly more often than I make toast. So the blender won out. And luckily, now that these radiators are painted the same color as the wall, shout out to my mom who did that while we were working on the floor, this whole zone, this whole back of the house looks a lot cuter. I do still have to make new cafe curtains, and I will have to keep them along the top like this because there's a screen porch on the back of my house that I don't love. It's kind of shoddy, and it actually, like, it cuts across here so you can see like insulation and sad stuff in the corners. So I definitely will have to keep some sort of curtains or valance blind going on these windows so that we don't have to see that, because it's, again, not the most attractive idea. But as we can see from the plethora of spices and cardamom pods and lavender and nutmeg, etc., I have been cooking a lot more the past several months, trying to learn how to make curry myself, for example, because I can't afford to be getting takeout all the time, but learning to make Indian food, why the heck not? Also, this is kind of a wasted space right now, this side of the kitchen. So like if I had a sink here and like more counter here, only enough that the door can still open, then I think it would be another, I mean, it's the idea of having a counter here. They had an idea there, but in 1973, they had it so it blocked the door. And I do wonder if they had thought about that beforehand and just accepted it, or if they installed the counter and then opened the door for the first time and went, oh, shoot. And you know that was a sad day for that housewife back then. Brand new Harvest Gold kitchen with this wallpaper, the whole shebang, and you go to open the back door and it hits the counter. That was going to be minus points there. But I almost think a island cart here, like keeping an island cart here, but having it with a little bit of an overhang on this side, and I could even do a couple of bar stools here, perhaps. Either that or some sort of a storage bench that I could put recycling in before I take it out to recycling. So I don't have like a, you know, paper bag of recycling here, because obviously that's not attractive, but still have a place to put it, because there are a few aluminum cans that you don't see here. I've put them in the other room because normally this is kind of where recycling gets stacked up before it gets taken outside. But of course, the main thoroughfare from the front door to the back of the house, you don't want to see recycling. That's just not classy. And yes, you may have spotted my emergency emotional support sugar pearl waffle, that you never know when you might need a sugary waffle. Yeah, but at least the coffee station is quite cute. Another thing to keep in mind here is that actually this blue, green, and kind of aqua color, which is, again, hard to capture on camera, it's actually, this is probably the most accurate color-wise I've seen so far, at least displayed on my iPhone. Once I get this in the PC, we'll see. But this color, of course, is directly complementary to the orange tones of wood, like the warm tones of wood, including in the, both like the chocolatey floor here, but also the warm tone of the inherent cabinetry in here. So that kind of helps balance the colors in here so that it's not overwhelmingly warm with the Harvest Gold and this and the orange and etc. So the blue kind of helps tone this room down and makes it feel a little bit more modern and clean, honestly. But this painting obviously goes more with the darker, more ambery tones, and you can see I've tried to mix those in here, trying to create more of an analogous color scheme as opposed to something that was just purely in the yellows and orange zone. Though, of course, being me, kind of my dream kitchens probably look like this or this or this when it comes to color scheme. However, it is a lot darker and it's not the most light-filled room back here, so I probably should keep with more lighter tones here. I wouldn't mind, again, doing tile on this and this wall, perhaps. Again, trying to make this much more of an Edwardian feeling space, and doing a tile like this or this, probably something with a subway tile. For resale value, obviously I would want to keep things light and bright back here, but as we've seen with the rest of the house, resale value is just not my top priority. And of course, the dark Gothic hallway is out there, the front of the house. Then we have this dining room that I showed you recently with the cat who is, you know, defying all instructions and getting on the table, which she's not allowed to do. And then, of course, here is the kitchen. As it stands right now, it needs a lot of help, a lot of work, but this is what I've managed to do so far over the last year with a lot of help from my family, thank goodness, because this was definitely the most outdated room in the house when I moved in, because of course there was a lot of elements that could be outdated, and they certainly were, but I think I'm making some progress towards both making it a little bit more functional and a little bit cuter as well. And thus, you have been fully updated. That is as far as I've gotten with the kitchen. Of course, there is a very long way to go, but it is a lot more usable, a lot more user-friendly, and a lot prettier, at least to my eye, than how it started, just because, again, the Apple wallpaper is gone. It's hard to say why exactly I found the country Apple wallpaper so very offensive. In fact, it is still here surrounding me. It's just no longer visible because I didn't pull the wallpaper down. Again, I did just paint it. But something about growing up like in the 90s and seeing so many of those kind of like country but not kitchens, I find it hard to articulate the difference between something being like themed and something just being, so like not being cottagecore themed, but just being cottagecore. Like you actually walked into like a living history site as opposed to something being themed after that. So like building yourself, I don't even know, like even a like Art Nouveau space as opposed to hanging a Muka poster. Like there's just something different about something being themed after something else and something just evoking it without having to like force feed the theme. And there's something about the Apple wallpaper, which to me just screams like country vibes without actually giving a retro country vibe. And really that's as far as I've got in sort of trying to intellectualize why this wallpaper bothered me so much. And although I have not made a ton of progress back here in the kitchen, I hope you will stay tuned to see what I will do in the future. In fact, I actually hope you will give me some advice on what you think I should do back there and what your sort of, what would you do with the layout of this kitchen, because it does have me a little bit stumped, especially with like the first renovation being where I can't move any of the major fixture points, and then also the second, let's, pie in the sky, move everything. What should I move it to? Maybe you can let me know. I'll be honest and say that I am still sort of recharging and trying to, refill the well, as it were, when it comes to re-engaging my creativity here in 2026. I have not quite recovered from 2025 yet, just because I took on so many rather large projects and kind of physically and mentally demanding projects when it comes to starting to get this house in order and bring myself out of the chaos of moving across the country. Still, I do hope to be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, crafting, and decorating real soon, so I'll see you then. Bye. Why? Like, that looks great, but I think I'm just burning the wick to high hell if I do that, right? And you can see the flame just shrinks down on its own. It doesn't want to be that tall, but like this is nothing. I'm practically turning it off. I'm an oil lamp novice, obviously, having always just flicked a switch my whole life. I don't really know how to work one of these.